The moment she smiled, Daniel knew something was different. It wasn't just the way her eyes softened or how her lips curved with quiet warmth, it was the pause that followed. A pause long enough to hold a secret. Long enough to change everything. Then she said it. My kids are in the car, can they come in? For a second, the world around Daniel seemed to go completely still. The clinking of coffee cups, the low hum of conversations in the cafe, even the soft jazz playing overhead, it all faded into the background. All he could hear was his own heartbeat. Kids. Plural. Daniel blinked, unsure if he had heard her right. I'm sorry, what? He asked gently, not out of confusion, but because he needed time to process. She didn't flinch. Instead, her smile stayed, though it carried a hint of vulnerability now. My kids, she repeated, nodding toward the parking lot outside the cafe window. They're in the car with my sister. I didn't want to bring them in right away. I wasn't sure how this would go. Daniel stared at her for a moment. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even upset. He was just surprised. Because Daniel was a single dad himself. And somehow, even he hadn't expected this. Just 2 hours earlier, Daniel had stood in front of his bedroom mirror, adjusting the collar of a shirt he hadn't worn in years. It felt strange, getting ready for a date. Not because he didn't want it, but because life hadn't really given him the space for it. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years ago, everything had been about survival. About keeping things together for his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily, with her bright eyes and endless questions. Lily, who still sometimes asked when mommy was coming back. Lily, who had become his entire world. Dating wasn't part of that world. Not until his sister insisted. You deserve to be happy too, she had told him. And Lily deserves to see that. He hadn't argued, but deep down, he didn't know if he was ready. Still, he showed up. And now here he was. Sitting across from a woman who had just revealed she came with her own world too. Daniel leaned back slightly, exhaling slowly. How many? He asked. She hesitated for half a second. 2. He nodded. Boys, girls, a girl and a boy, she said. Emma is 8, Noah is 5. Daniel couldn't help but smile a little at that. My daughter's 6, he said. Something shifted in her expression then, something softer, more understanding. You're a single parent too, she said quietly. He nodded. For the first time since sitting down, the tension between them eased. Because suddenly, this wasn't just a blind date anymore. This was 2 people who already knew what it meant to carry a life bigger than themselves. Her name was Sarah. She had kind eyes, the kind that looked like they had seen both joy and pain, and learned to live with both. Daniel found himself wondering what her story was. Divorce, loss, he didn't ask, not yet. Instead, he focused on the moment in front of him. You can bring them in, he said finally. Sarah blinked, surprised. Really? Daniel smiled gently. Yeah, I mean, I can't promise I'll impress them, but I'll try. She let out a small laugh, one that sounded like relief. Thank you, she said. And just like that, everything changed. 5 minutes later, the cafe door opened again. 2 small figures stepped inside, holding hands. Emma was the first thing Daniel noticed. She had long brown hair tied into a messy ponytail and carried herself with a quiet confidence that reminded him of someone older than her age. Noah, on the other hand, clung slightly to her arm, his eyes scanning the room with cautious curiosity. Sarah stood up quickly. Hey, my loves, she said softly. The kids rushed to her. Daniel watched as she knelt down, hugging them tightly, like they were her anchor. Something about that moment hit him harder than he expected. Because he knew that hug. He had given it 1,000 times. Kids, Sarah said after a moment, this is Daniel. Emma looked at him carefully. Noah hid slightly behind her. Daniel gave a small wave. Hi, Emma nodded. Hi, she replied politely. Noah didn't say anything. Daniel smiled. Do you guys like hot chocolate? He asked. Noah peeked out a little more. Emma answered. Yes. Then I think we're in the right place, Daniel said. And just like that, the ice began to melt. What was supposed to be a simple blind date turned into something entirely different. They pushed 2 tables together. Ordered extra drinks. Shared stories, not just between Daniel and Sarah, but with the kids too. Emma talked about school. Noah proudly showed off a small toy car he had brought with him. And Daniel, he listened. Really listened, because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just thinking about what he had lost. He was thinking about what might still be possible. At one point, Noah accidentally spilled his drink. The liquid spread quickly across the table. He froze, his small face filled with panic. "I'm sorry," he blurted out, his voice trembling. Sarah moved quickly. "It's okay, baby," but Daniel was already reaching for napkins. "Hey," he said gently, crouching down to nose level. "It's just a spill. Happens all the time." Noah looked up at him, unsure. Daniel smiled. "You should see how many times my daughter spills juice at home. I think we go through a roll of paper towels every week." Noah blinked. Then, he smiled. Just a little, but it was enough. Sarah watched the moment quietly. Something in her eyes shifted again. Because she wasn't just seeing how Daniel handled a situation. She was seeing who he was. And maybe, imagining what it could mean. As the evening went on, the conversation grew deeper. The kids eventually settled, busy with coloring sheets the cafe provided. And for the first time, Daniel and Sarah had a moment to really talk. "I didn't tell you about the kids beforehand," Sarah said softly. "I'm sorry if that caught you off guard." Daniel shook his head. "It did," he admitted. "But not in a bad way." She looked at him carefully. "I've just had bad experiences," she continued. "Some people say they understand, but when they see the reality, they leave." Daniel nodded slowly. "I get that," he said. Because he did. He remembered the few times he had tried to date before. The hesitation. The subtle distance when the conversation turned to Lily. The unspoken realization that his life came with responsibilities not everyone was ready for. "I'm not looking for perfect," Daniel said after a moment. "I'm just looking for real." Sarah's eyes softened. "That's all I want too," she said. When it was time to leave, the kids were already half asleep. Noah rested against Sarah's shoulder. Emma held her hand quietly. Daniel walked them to the door. The night air was cool. The city lights flickered softly around them. "Thank you," Sarah said. "For what?" Daniel asked. "For not walking away," she said. Daniel smiled gently. "I think we both showed up with more than we expected," he said. She laughed softly. "Yeah, we did." There was a pause. Not awkward. Just full. "Maybe next time," Daniel said slowly. "We plan it with all 3 kids from the start." Sarah looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time that night, her smile wasn't uncertain. It was sure. "I'd like that," she said. A week later, Lily met them. She was shy at first, clinging to Daniel's side, but Emma quickly took her hand. Noah offered her his toy car. And just like that, something new began. It wasn't perfect. There were challenges, different routines, different parenting styles, moments of doubt, moments of fear, but there were also movie nights with 3 kids piled on one couch, laughter that filled the house again, small hands reaching for each other, and 2 adults learning, slowly, how to build something together, not from perfection, but from understanding. One evening, months later, Lily looked up at Daniel and asked, "Are we a bigger family now?" Daniel glanced across the room. At Sarah, at Emma and Noah, at the life that had grown from one unexpected moment. He smiled. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think we are. Because sometimes, love doesn't arrive the way you expect. It doesn't come neatly packaged or perfectly timed. Sometimes it shows up with surprises. With complications. With kids waiting in the car. And if you're brave enough to open the door, you might just find something even more beautiful than you imagined. A second chance. A fuller life. A bigger love."